everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we always love talking with the Hallmark writers. And so we have a new writer with us today. We have the writer of In Merry Measure, Russell Hainline. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is so cool. We really enjoyed the movie. You can hear our recap this week on our Wednesday episode. We all gave it pretty high scores, so I all enjoyed it. And so it's great to get a chance to talk with you about it and your experience. And it was really cool. I'm a big Letterboxd person as a film critic and as a podcaster, and I'll put a link in the description if people want to sign up for Letterboxd free, and it's really fun. It's a way to kind of share your opinions and of movies, and there's not that many of us Hallmarkies on there, but all the movies are on there, so people should sign up and check it out. And I'll put my link if you want to follow me. But you had kind of shared your experience on there in your post on it, your review. And so I was so excited to read it. And because I noticed when I was doing prep for the episode that you hadn't had at least any other rom-coms on your filmography. So fun to hear of your experience.
Yeah, I'm glad that people seem to be reacting well, first of all, to the movie, most importantly, but also to what I wrote. I mean, like, Letterboxd can be a little snarky sometimes, so you never really know exactly how people will respond, especially to something that's, earnest and sincere and, is kind of memed a lot in internet culture. So I was very happy that everybody liked what I said and liked the movie. And yeah, it's been a very warm welcome.
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes me crazy because you'll read on there, not just for Hallmark rom-coms, but just rom-coms in general. They'll be like, I had such a great time with this. This was so much fun. 2 stars.
Sure. Yeah.
That there's just like no way that they would give a good score to, even if they admit flat out that they liked it and they enjoyed it. I don't know. It makes me crazy.
Sure. I think that one of the things that I used to dabble in film criticism, and it's so easy to get into being mean for clicks. I'm sure that my top most liked review on Letterboxd is definitely something where I just hated the movie and I was just flipping mean about it, and everybody really liked it, because sometimes when you're really frustrated watching a movie, that can be a nice release. But especially for movies like these, I mean, the people working on it are working very hard. I think people think that they're very cynically produced, and in my experience, that has not remotely been the case. So I just wanted to share some positivity about it. And luckily, a lot of other people have been, again, more people than I expected. I expected the people to do exactly what you just said, right? The 2 stars, whatever, it was fine. I thought it was cute, which is fine also if you feel that way. But yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, as a film critic, I learned to try to always respect the people involved, because they at least made something and I'm sitting here reviewing it. So I should at the very least respect that they made something I didn't. But also that if I go overboard on the hyperbole, which is fun to do sometimes, it is, that people don't actually respect your opinion. They might laugh, they might have fun with it, but when I really actually really dislike something, people know, because I don't do that often.
Sure.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, I think the thing that almost certainly is my most liked there is the movie Passengers with Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, which I found off-putting for a number of reasons.
I can understand that.
I believe my review was just one line, and it said, "In space, no one can hear me scream," or something like that, or it was something along those lines, right? Just a reference to Alien tagline. So everybody loved LOL, it's fine. But especially now, having worked on movies more and having met so many people who work on movies, I mean, odds are very strong I will be the writer on another bad movie at some point in my, not that this one was bad, but I'm saying that because it wasn't, but this happens to writers, it happens to directors,
Yeah.
it happens to actors, it happens to everybody. And so they're still just trying to make it their best. And
Yeah.
I try to keep that in mind a lot more now than maybe I did back in the day. Doesn't mean to give a pass to something that's bad, obviously, but yeah,
Yeah.
just to give it a little more kindness to the people involved, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's learn a little bit more about you. So, how did you get started in that? You said you moved, to California. You're trying to become a writer. So, how did that all start? Did you grow up kind of loving movies, loving writing? Like, where did you get started?
Yeah, I was a basketball player going into high school who then was too unathletic to continue reasonably down the path of a basketball career. And I got into theater, very sort of Zac Efron in High School Musical, right?
Nice.
And I was a writer for those. I wrote some one acts, things like this. When I went to Duke for college, I was very involved in theater there, in musical theater there as well, as you could probably tell from the movie to some extent. And I taught theater outside DC afterwards. I taught high school. Also, you can tell maybe from the movie. So while I was there, I just kind of had the idea that I would continue writing, but just on my own, and maybe I could, shoot something on my own the way that people want to do. And there's this very illustrious idea of, because the materials that you can use to make film have been very democratized. Like, you can film something on your iPhone, you can buy a microphone on Amazon, you can use your friends. I kind of thought, oh, well, this will be really easy. I'll just make stuff over the summer and then, piece of cake. It's not that easy. When you teach, people say, oh, you get 3 months off. Yeah, you need 3 months off. Like, you are working a 12-month year in 9 months, which is very, very hard, especially as a theater teacher who you do not get paid to stay after and direct shows. You do not get paid to work on weekends. You do it out of love, but it is exhausting. So I decided, hey, if I'm going to actually try to be a writer, I have to go to LA. I've got to meet people. I've got to devote all my time to this. I'd saved up some money. So I moved. I started it, as you probably know from the Letterboxd thing, I started writing like horror, suspense, action. These are the sort of things I watched growing up. My brother and I would watch, like sci-fi movies on Saturday mornings with, giant spiders and yetis and things of this nature, right? Like those are things
Mhm.
that I enjoyed, and they make a lot of them here. So I thought that seems like a smart path. And I worked on that for a while, and it was really hard. I tried to do things on my own, very, very hard. I tried to get things funded more or less working by myself, even harder. I got some work here and there. Sometimes the work fell through at the last minute. Sometimes, like on Web of Lies, the Lifetime movie, that's my other credit on IMDb, sometimes you get replaced. That happens. So writing can be very, very hard. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, I was tired of coming up with creative ways to murder people, is the line that I always use. It was already a very anxiety inducing time. I wasn't feeling very great about the world in general. And just continuing to sort of sit in that and swim, tread water in it, was not great for me. And I had met Jack Grossbart, who produces some of these movies, and he had liked a horror script that I wrote, but he couldn't do anything with it because he does Hallmark types of movies, and it was very gory. So he said it's too gory. So, fair enough, right? But he told me if I ever wanted to write a Christmas movie, to give him a call because he thought I could write. So I tried one. I wrote one. I worked through it with him for a while. It's still floating out there. We still send it out, and maybe it'll get made one day. So I don't want to say too many things about it, but it was a huge learning experience, just figuring out. I'd seen a number of Hallmark movies, but like writing them when you've been writing horror and action and stuff is a very quick pivot. So I learned a lot of lessons, and then this was the second thing that I wrote. In what became called In Merry Measure.
Mhm.
So, and that one came out of me very quickly, and it was very much drawn on a lot of my experiences. and the producers loved it. Hallmark loved it. Everybody was a joy to work with. I mean, it just became a very dream scenario. And now I'm hoping to be sort of entrenched in the Hallmark family and keep writing these sorts of movies, because even though I never anticipated I would be writing these movies, I'm really having a blast doing it.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting what you're saying, because on a lot of levels, but you think about the people might think that, oh, the difference between rom-com and horror is like huge, but actually it's really really not. I mean, we
It's
kind of
not.
joke that
It's not at all.
like some of these movies, you change the score and you've got a horror movie. Like,
Sure. Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I
that's
mean,
true of a lot of those, if in Love Actually, if a guy shows up with signs outside
yeah,
your door and the music is slightly creepy, then
yeah,
you read that scene completely differently.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. And I liked in your post that you said that it felt like writing science fiction without the spaceships.
Yes. Yeah, it's absolutely science fiction, because you have to create a very unique and outlined and detailed world in which people are good and everyone is nice to one another and good things happen to the people who deserve it. And that just doesn't always happen in real life, as we very well know. And certainly around the holiday season, it feels nice to sort of put yourself inside of that fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah.
believe that the magic of Christmas can make these good things a reality for these people who deserve it. And I've had a lot of fun doing that, for sure. It's not spaceships and wizards, but it's very much its own sort of fantasy sci-fi. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun.
Well, and I've always said that I feel like the reason why people love Hallmark movies and rom-coms just in general since the beginning of movie making is that they're hopeful. People want to
Sure.
believe in a hopeful ending for our characters. People want to believe in hope for themselves that good things will happen. And yeah, sure, they are all shot with bokeh filters and really really beautiful people falling in love. But I think that for a lot of people, it's not like that far off of a lot of people's lives. Like most people do fall in love and most people do get, married statistically. Most people have, happy parts of their lives, at least, you think,
Yeah.
I mean, my parents, they've been married for over 40 years and, I was
Same.
very lucky in the sense that like my parents, I'm not saying they never squabbled, but like not in front of us. I've had almost no memories of my parents fighting in front of me.
Same.
And I'm very fortunate for that. But it's I guess it's not as outside of the reality of a lot of people's lives as maybe it feels for some people and some things. And I just think that we all need a dose of hope every now and then, especially like you were saying in the 2020 that time when it was hard to be hopeful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it felt good for me personally to be working on things that brought up a lot of good memories, right? Doing high school theater, I did a cappella in college, obviously drawing on that some, then teaching high school theater, right? Just a lot of kids who are very hopeful that like they don't know where their lives are going. And so to give them something that makes them feel fulfilled, that made me feel fulfilled,
Yeah.
like that's fun in a story. And certainly Darcy's story and Adam's story, right? These are people that I'd like to think that everybody knows to some extent. Maybe we don't know like big pop stars, but we know people who maybe who moved out of their hometown, who are reluctant to move back home out of fear that it means that their dreams and aspirations that they held when they left town are now over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the big things about the movie, which I heard you all talk about, I listened to the show and was a big part of what we wanted when we made the movie, is to show that you can manage both things, that you can have the dream, you can have the family, you can have the relationship, you can have all of these things. It does not have to be, I'm sacrificing myself for this cause. You can devote yourself to the family, the relationship causes, while also maintaining the thing for yourself. That's something I believe in very
Mhm.
strongly. I was
Yeah.
glad that it made it all the way through the process and into the final movie.
Yeah.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Interesting is my cousin was, when she was going through rehab, they actually had at the place where she was at, they did a play. They put on a play.
Sure.
Because what they were trying to do, because they took them like this particular place, they took them like skydiving. What they were trying to do is to show that you could get like a high off of like other things.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And so one of the things they did was like to put on a play. And I think that is like very true. I mean, I haven't done a play since high school, but I do remember just that thrill of being like, oh my gosh, it all came together. And like, usually the dress rehearsal is like terrible. And like, absolutely everything goes wrong that could go wrong in a dress rehearsal. And so then when you actually pull it off that night, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
So
I did briefly when I was living in DC, I did stand-up comedy. And that is about as terrifying as it gets. But if it goes well, it is the most uplifting. Like you feel like you could run through a brick wall. And then if it goes poorly, then you do not want to go outside for a week, right? Like, so yeah, there is something about performance and certainly elements of sharing yourself too, right? Tapping into emotions that maybe you don't get to display very frequently, that I do think is very cathartic and gives people a good feeling. I know that that's a big reason why prisons often will, maybe not often, but you hear about prisons doing theatrical performances that are often quite moving and very revealing about the material, because it's these people choosing to open themselves up in a way that they don't get to very frequently. And it's, it provides a sense of, just catharsis, I guess I don't have a synonym for catharsis. I'm just gonna have to re-hammer the same word.
That would actually make a really good, it would have to be probably Lifetime, not Hallmark, I think. But that would make a good movie.
I don't know how many prison settings are in the Hallmark channel.
Or the rehab, though. For Lifetime.
Sure,
like,
yes,
you couldn't do it on
that might, But for sure, for sure.
If you crossed over to Lifetime, I think that could make a good movie.
It could. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but you said that you got to go onto the shoot. Which was pretty cool because, they've been very strict about that these days. So that was cool that they let you go onto set.
Yeah, I very fortunately had a really good relationship with the producers, with Paula, the director. I talked to her a number of times and we were getting along very well. And I said, hey, like, I'll take all the tests you need. I'm happy to do whatever it takes. But, this is the first time that I've gone through from the very beginning to the very end of a movie where the vast majority of my script is still intact. And I'm very excited about how it'll come out and the people that you're casting. And so could I please come and just like watch for a few days? And everyone was so supportive. And then I went and everyone was also incredibly lovely, which is also maybe not always what you hear from movie sets. So it was just really a dream job. Honestly, it was great.
That's great. I'm so happy. And well, let's dive into the movie a little bit more.
Sure.
So I mentioned in our recap that I connected with it emotionally because I also had a choir teacher that was very focused on winning.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
yes. And she didn't really like it wasn't just me. There were a bunch of other people that she didn't really care about sort of nurturing their talent. All she cared about was what will make the vocal ensemble the best. That was
Sure.
so that they could win. And it really did have a big effect on my confidence and also just like feeling like I was bad. Like I was bad. I was a bad singer. And so it wasn't until I started taking voice lessons just for fun to kind of, and I felt like I needed to kind of dig that out of me.
Sure.
And so I took voice lessons as an adult, and it was so empowering, I guess, to feel like, oh, I'm okay at this. Like she was wrong.
Yeah.
And if over on my channel, Rachel's Reviews, I have some clips of me singing at recitals and stuff. And I'm not the greatest, but like I had a great time, and it was a very empowering experience for me. And I think it must have been challenging to write Brendan's character, to have him come from that spot, but still keep him likable enough that we're not like too down on him. Like I feel like that's tricky.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, to address your original point, I mean, so I was a camp counselor starting in high school. It was like my first job. And one of the first things I remember the boss telling me is that he still remembered when he was in third grade when a teacher said that something that he said was stupid, right? That there's something about when you are in charge of young people, like, and I'm sure, and we all have these memories too, right? We remember like little things that there's no way that they remember at all, right? They just probably said something passingly. So and I've certainly been at auditions where I didn't get the part I wanted, or I didn't get a part at all, or I knew I did badly. And those can really sink you. I think that Adam, as somebody who's also now been on the teacher side of things, it was important, and I know you talked about this on your episode as well, it was important that we got Adam's backstory and where he was coming from, because I do think that a lot of these teachers that have that sense of like, I've got to win, there's usually something baked into them from their childhood, right? From something long ago. And there was more of Adam's backstory in like early drafts and things. But yeah, he was a guy for whom he had to work. I think his line is something along the lines of like, he had to work to like really hard to get to the middle. And he was just watching somebody like Darcy, who just seemingly effortlessly was above him due to natural talent. And I think we also have like things in life where we realize that it's something that we love doing, but maybe we aren't blessed the way that other people are blessed. Right? It's good. Like Rick's big speech about how Celine Dion can't play football and he can't sing like Celine Dion. I think that's one of the things I wanted to tackle the most in this movie, is trying to figure out what you love and how hard you need to work. And you might need to work harder than other people. And sometimes you don't, and that's great too. But that idea of like work versus talent and how to nurture both on your own and as teachers, how to nurture others, is something that even after my teaching days are done now, I think about a lot.
It is true that if you think about a lot of the most famous singers aren't actually that good of technically classical singing,
Sure.
right? But someone like, I don't know, just off the top of my head, someone like a Bob Dylan or somebody like that. Like, it's not like he has like a classically great voice, but he's a great songwriter and he's got his own style and he's obviously brilliant at what he does. And so that I think is part of the trick of sort of having the confidence, which these experiences kind of hurt and knock you down, but the confidence to kind of be your own voice and your own style, and that's it's part of growing up, that experience, I think.
Totally. And I think obviously one of the notes that I saw people put in their reviews, which I completely understand, is like, how could they turn this team that didn't do well around so quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to some extent, you do just in a movie like this have to believe in a little Christmas magic on that sort of on that sort of front. But we wanted to also make it clear that these weren't untalented kids. They were kids who lacked confidence.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you lack confidence and suddenly you get imbued with confidence, then you really can take off and be ready pretty quickly. Again, maybe not in the time frame that the movie presents, but it's different than if we showed that they like just can't sing at all, or they're terrible, like untalented at singing. We tried to show in that montage that even though Darcy was not thrilled with what she was seeing, that there were things there, like the kid Jason. Chris Carson's the actor. He's a good young actor, and this is totally based off a kid that I knew when in my a cappella days, who came in and auditioned, and he was so off. He was so bad. He was so bad. But then if he put his headphones on, he could sing along with a song nicely, right? But the boldly singing off, right, or whatever the closed caption said.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that one?
Yo, yeah.
That was so funny.
Yeah, without his headphones, he will be boldly off, and then with his headphones, he'll be boldly on and be good. So things like that, people that I had encountered where they just needed like a small adjustment, right, in order to figure out how to make things work and find their voice, right, find the confidence behind what they had inside naturally.
Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, I would struggle so much with the auditions with this choir teacher, and I would just get so nervous. But I remember we were having the audition for the musical, the spring musical, and I did so much better in that than I did in these one-on-one auditions. And I even remember my choir teacher being like, whoa, that was very different. And because I could kind of, when I was singing on the stage, I could kind of make it all melt away, and it was just me singing, as opposed to like my teacher that I didn't like, staring me down.
Yeah,
Kind of
totally.
way.
And
So
so
I
much
think
of his
there's truth to that.
personality, yeah, like so much of it is personality too. And we learned that as a teacher and as a student as well. Like the first thing I tried out for in high school for musical theater, I got cast in the only non-singing, non-dancing role in the musical.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's hard not to take that to heart too much. And then I tried out for another musical directed by somebody else at the school not long after, and I was younger. I think I was a sophomore, and there were juniors and seniors who should be getting, big roles ahead of me. And I got the biggest role from that teacher. Right. So then that was affirming to me in the sense that it was not that I lacked talent before. It was just I wasn't what that teacher was looking for. I wasn't what that teacher needed right then. I didn't vibe with that teacher. But with a different teacher, I was able to shine, right?
Yeah.
And so having multiple people deal with, the Herald Angels and deal with sort of the misfit crew, they could learn from the different styles, learn from one another, find things that mesh with them to figure out how to bring out their best selves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and that's why they ended up, Brendan Penny and Penny Mirren ended up being like a great team together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I sidetracked myself. This is also, I'm sorry. I'm just excited to talk about the movie. So if I completely go off the rails, please feel free to bring me back. Adam being a jerk and figuring out how much of a jerk to make him at the beginning was hard. Like it definitely took a lot of conversation about what he could say, what he couldn't say. And honestly, at the end of the day, I think we left it fairly jerky in the script, and we just trusted that our actor knew what to do. And if maybe we had less faith in an actor, we would have had to row back some of that dialogue some. But Brendan Penny, man, I tell you what, he's a guy who walks in and he does his first take, and you're like, oh, he just gets it. He just gets it. And I think that, and y'all talked about this a little bit on your show as well, the fact that he got to play funnier maybe than he usually gets to was something that clearly appealed to him, and he was really happy to like sink his teeth into. It seemed like, man, just tonally from day one he understood.
Well, and I think, like I joked on the pod, like putting him through the Nerdifier, it helped because it just made him, it softened him, made him sweeter, made I think it helped with that likability a lot.
Yeah, he's kind of a nerd in real life too. I kept hearing that a little bit, and then I got to like play charades while we were waiting between takes with him and the kids, the Herald Angels.
Yeah.
And so we'd be playing with, one of these like app, things. It'll pop up a movie or whatever, and it'll be something from like the 80s or 90s that clearly only Brendan and I would know, and none of the kids would know.
Yeah.
And he dove in head first. He was having some fun back there. Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Well, honestly, I'm sure he is. And honestly, the as soon as they posted the picture of him with glasses,
Oh yeah.
all of Hallmarkies exploded. Like everyone freaked out.
Yes.
It was a brilliant
Yes.
choice.
Yes, and he was
Very
great about like pushing the way and the timing in which he would like casually push the glasses up. I don't know how often he was choosing to push it up as like as a choice, and how often it was just him doing it by instinct,
Yeah.
but it felt very natural, and it
Yeah.
felt like this is just who he is. It was not a transition that was difficult for him to go from playing like the hunk in things to playing this guy.
Yeah.
He was right in the pocket from the word go.
Well, keep him in that pocket. We like it.
Yeah, I like
and-
it too.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you must have been stoked when you heard about Patty Murin. I mean, so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I definitely wrote it hoping that we could get somebody who either A, had like a musical background, like somebody who had been in the music industry,
Yeah.
or somebody who was a Broadway performer, somebody who would be very credible in the singing scenes, and also very credible in terms of understanding what it's like to be in the spotlight. And obviously she, as a result of her work in Frozen, has a very devoted following and a very big following. And I kind of wonder, I haven't talked to Patty about this, but it's good to have somebody in the role of Darcy who has had a thing that was so big and iconic for so many people, so that Darcy being kind of a one-hit wonder, which Patty is not, but having something that a lot of people are going to associate with Patty like forever, and having an actor who sort of gets that,
Yeah.
maybe you have to grapple with that some, is great. And yeah, she was also an absolute delight, and I know she would very much love to be in more of these movies. I would love to write more movies that
Yes.
she can be in. I would love that.
Did she, and maybe Brendan as well, do some ad-libbing in some improv in this? I felt like
Sure.
lines like, "Oh, that's a creepy basement." that like maybe I
Creepy
was like,
Basement, definitely an ad lib.
yeah, that's what I felt.
That one I cannot take credit for. There are definitely a number of lines in there that I thought they did a great job of making seem off the cuff that were scripted.
Uh-huh.
But there were also definitely beats in there where, or Brendan Penny calling the principal Jimbo instead of Jim, just sort of casually. That was another one where I did not have Jimbo written into the script, but I think I was live tweeting when it aired. I laughed so hard that I was afraid I'd blown the take. Like I was back there and I was afraid they picked up my laugh on the mic,
Yeah. I liked another good line, and I don't know if you wrote, I'm sure you wrote this, but the if you sing any quieter, it'll be a literal silent night.
Yes, that
was
one
a
was
good
me for sure.
Yeah, that was
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun writing something that was designed to be funny. I think that sometimes the Hallmark movies at least have a reputation for prioritizing coziness over funniness, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that reputation, depending on the movie, can maybe be earned, but maybe some of those movies just aren't really going for being like a laugh riot. Some of them want to be cozy first, and that's great. We definitely wanted this to have some real humor to it, and everybody from like Hallmark on down, they were very on board with let's make this funny. Let's leave in all of the one-liners that are in the script, and let's see how many of them will make it into the final cut. It was refreshing to see. It was great.
Yeah. To thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast, it's the good folks at Baker Publishing Group. Looking for the perfect gift for the book lover in your life? Dive into some great dual-time novels this Christmas where the past intersects with the present. First up, we have By Way of the Moonlight by Elizabeth Musser. Allie Massey's dream to use her grandparents' estate for equine therapy is crushed when she discovers the property has been sold to a contractor. With weeks until demolition, Allie unearths some of Nanadale's best-kept secrets, including her champion filly, a handsome man, and one fateful night during World War II, and perhaps a clue to keep her own dream alive. Next, Where the Last Rose Blooms by Ashley Clark. More than a century apart, two women seek lost hope. Abolitionist Clara is determined to help an enslaved woman reunite with her daughter. Alice can't stop wondering what happened to her mother in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Faced with the unknown, both women will have to dig deep to let their courage bloom. Next, When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. Libby has been given a powerful gift to live one life in 1774 colonial Williamsburg and the other in 1914 Gilded Age New York City. When she falls asleep in one life, she wakes up in the other without any time passing. On her 21st birthday, Libby must choose one path and forfeit the other. But how can she possibly decide when she has so much to lose? Then we have The Master Craftsman by Kelly Stewart. When Ava Lane's dying treasure hunter father entrusts to her his mission to find a missing Fabergé egg, she has no idea how high the stakes will climb or how her allegiances will be tested. Join the hunt in this lavish dual-time narrative that plunges you into the 1917 Russian Revolution, the fall of the Romanovs, and a long-buried Soviet secret. And finally, The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp by Sarah Brunsvold. Frustrated reporter Aidan Kelly begrudgingly agrees to help a hospice patient prepare her obituary, but old Claire Kipp has some incredible stories and some surprises up her sleeve that promises to make this seemingly throwaway assignment a life-changing one. So head over to bakerbookhouse.com/featured/Hallmarkies to pick up one of these great books and use code Hallmarkies40 for 40% off these titles from November 14th to December 12th. That's bakerbookhouse.com/featured/Hallmarkies and use code Hallmarkies40 for 40% off. Another good line was when they say you were a pop star, and she said, "I'm going to ignore the use of the word were."
Yeah,
funny.
there were a few bits in the script that are like that. I also liked, on the phone when Matt Colabrese, the record producer, calls her and says, don't worry, I'm sure you've got another sugar rush like coming in no time, or something along those lines, right? It's always people looking for the thing that she already did, and not people looking for the thing that she's doing now. So I tried to pepper in as many one-liners there about like what you were versus what you are, because she's trying so hard to get people to see who she is. And
then when they finally have that conversation where Adam tells her how jealous he was and how it seems to be so easy for her, and she's just kind of like, yeah, no. And they have that all kind of comes full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a moment we were kind of trying to decide again as we were having conversations about Adam, like how much of a jerk should Adam be? How much should Darcy push back, right? Like how much should we establish like why do they not like each other? Like do we need to dive into like, should there be some story about an event that happened or whatever? And we had some conversations about that, and I think at one point I just said in one of these meetings, look, I just had somebody when I was in high school where I know they didn't like me because certain things were coming for me easier than for them. And it wasn't that I didn't like them. And they probably, like, if we went out to get drinks right now, I guarantee we would just be like, boy, that was dumb in high school, how we just kind of butted heads, right? And then everybody else in the meeting, as we were talking, they were like, I also had that person, like where I would just go get drinks with them today, but we butted heads. We're like, yeah, then I feel
teenagers.
like that's enough. Right. Yeah. Then that ends up being enough. Like that ends up making it more relatable. They don't need to like have had some big fight necessarily that they're holding on to, or have had some sort of deeper relationship, other than like they're insecure kids who are in close proximity, who come from very different backgrounds, and they both kind of think the other person doesn't like them. So then that becomes enough. That's the most relatable thing there is.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, so we mentioned on the recap that we really liked the fact that you had like an actual date in this movie. And I don't know if you, being a new writer, didn't kind of realize that a lot of times they skip over that in Hallmark movies. And so it was very refreshing, because a lot of times they'll be like working on the same project, and so then they just kind of work together and then they end up falling in love. And so,
Yeah.
or you go back and meet the hometown hunk or whatever, and you don't like have a little that like sweet awkwardness of like, will you go on a date with me? The I don't know, I just love when they include a date in these movies.
Yeah, I think that was something important to me. We did have at other points in the script scenes where they were having like date, but like also having activities on the date, like doing. I know that like to some extent people are reluctant, not just on Hallmark, but like movies in general, of having two people just like sit and talk, right? Like that generally that's not very cinematic, right? Like having activity is good. And generally speaking, that's true. Like you should have people doing things to some extent. But there was something for me about just making sure that they had the progression from they're working together and they get drinks after, which I'm also very pleased that this is one of the very few Hallmark movies in which the characters go and grab a beer. That's just not really something that I've seen very much.
It's true.
That going from we don't like each other to we tolerate each other to I could go get a beer with this person to I would like to go on a very real date with this person, right? Showing that step-by-step progress,
Yes.
very important. And I think everyone agreed with that too. So again, there weren't many pushbacks for like that steakhouse date where they really do just like sit and talk for like 3-4 minutes. Maybe there were some concerns about, well, how long should this be? But like at the end of the day, everyone was like, it works, so let's roll with it. And again, I'm very grateful that everybody involved was very supportive of the script and was very simpatico about a lot of the themes and ideas that I had and that Paula had and that the actors had and the producers had. Just everybody was so on the same page, and it was just a wonderful experience in that respect.
Because when you have a date, you get lots of moments for like awkwardness and cute moments and a good conversation, as you said. And you also get the chance for the end of the date kiss, kind of, are you going to do it? Are you not going to do it? And we really like the fact that you didn't just have a near kiss. You had a near kiss with intention, an explanation. And that was so much better, because a lot of times when they do the near kisses, it's just so stupid. Like no adults are going to stop kissing because the phone rings or because there's like someone closes a door or something. I don't know. Like just these ridiculous interruptions that's not stopping me from kissing Brendan Penny. Like that's not happening.
Sure. Yeah. Or Patty Murin. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I think you can, hopefully it's coming across that I very much believe in making sure that there's as much intention behind, all the decisions in these as possible. And again, credit to everyone working at Hallmark and the producers and the director. We had so many conversations about exactly these things. And everyone agreed that these were moments that worked and let's keep them. And I feel like sometimes maybe I'm just wrong. I've got to think that some of the interrupted kisses that you see, I don't want to say like they come down from like somebody who is just very insistent that it needs to be this way, that like it doesn't feel like something where like 20 people working on a movie together come together and go, yes, like we need a dog to bark, and then they'll stop kissing or whatever, right? Like that feels like to me one person involved in a production, whoever it may be, like putting their foot down and being like, no, it's a dog bark. Like I don't know. I think when it's a real great collaboration is really when you see all of the intention behind things work its way into the actual end final product.
The problem is that I feel like the near kisses often don't really do anything for the story. Like they can be kind of cute
Sure.
and flirty and whatever, that's fine. But like in reality, if I almost kiss somebody, I don't feel like that would be that different than actually
Yeah.
kissing them. As far as like what it would mean to the story and what would it mean for my life and how I would feel, like I don't think it would be that different. And so if they can work the near kiss into the story and make it actually
Sure.
impact the character instead of something that's just instantly forgotten and they're talking like nothing happened, right?
Yeah.
And so if they go and have the actual kiss or a near kiss with intention, where they
Yeah.
actually explain why we're not kissing, that then it's part of the story. It's pretty hard to not make an actual kiss part of the story, and it's like impacting
Yeah.
the characters, and they have to deal with it and what's going to happen. So I think that that's kind of, I'm not opposed to near kisses if they're used effectively in the story, but so often they aren't.
Yeah, they need to have intention. If somebody
Yeah.
starts doing the lean or the eye close, like if it's going to stop, it's got to be a really good reason,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
for us, the reason was that at the end of the steakhouse date, Adam says to Darcy, "Hey, if you're still here at the new year, like this place has a great tasting menu. You've got to try." And she now realizes, like, oh, this is very temporary, right? This is not something that I can just keep doing this, into the rest of the future. So it makes her hesitate, right? Even though she would very much like to kiss him, as she says. I think once you get to the lean, then yeah, you've got to have an intention. I'm not opposed to, there was at one point a sledding scene in this that ultimately we had to like cut because we filmed in like August in Vancouver or whatever.
Yeah.
And so there was something in the script where they ended up in the snow, like looking at each other, not leaning, not closing eyes, right? But like, I do think that you can have like whatever precedes a near kiss, right? Where you're maybe a little too close to another person, and then you
Yeah.
see the gears turn of like, oh, like this is like what's going on here, right? Like that kind of friction, I think is something worth playing. But yeah, if you've got the lean, there's got to be a reason if it stops, for sure. I agree with that.
Yeah. Did it surprise you in writing this how much thought goes into things like this, like the near
Oh
kiss?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I mean, that's a great question. So much of, again, like the memes about Hallmark movies online are that they're just plug and play, right? You replace cookie shop with ski lodge, and then it's another movie, right? Or whatever. And again, maybe there are movies where some of that makes sense,
Yeah.
right? But these people are really trying to make movies that stand out and are distinctive. And especially now, most of the meetings that I have are about like, let's try to figure out how is this different than other things. And so it'll still be under the umbrella of the same kind of vibe, right? But like, you don't want to just be beat for beating the same thing as before. And I think the whole weekend of shows, I mean, like the nanny thing, there was like a whole spy element and whatnot, right? And
Yes. Yes.
and then the Golden Dragon one was interesting too. So yeah, I think under the leadership they've got, they are trying to find distinctive ways to tell these stories, to make them be in the same sort of family of movie, but in a way that maybe feels a little fresher. And it takes so much conversation about, to your point from before, especially not just about how to tell a story, which even to do something that's like something they've done before, you have to have those conversations, but to have those conversations and to have conversations about, well, how do we make this new also? How do we try to make this thing stand out in addition to all of the storytelling conversations? It's a lot of talking through every single page.
Yeah.
And I guess I was prepared for it to some extent, but I think people would be surprised the amount of work and care and the amount of talent involved. The cinematographers for In Merry Measure are geniuses in my book. I mean, like they not only shot it beautifully, but could move from one setup to the next with such laser-like precision and efficiency. The type of which I've just never seen before, really. I mean, maybe Roger Deakins is doing that too, but like I was just blown away by how hard everyone worked and how great everyone was at their job. And again, I can't emphasize enough what a positive experience this was.
Yeah. Well, and I agree that, and I joked in the intro about the bokeh, but it's true when you get that, like just the beautiful lights and the people don't know
Sure.
bokeh is like the how do you describe it? I don't know. It's the back making everything kind of you get the lights turn into circles.
Yeah, sure. A
Yeah.
little like lens flariness, a little bit of a haze to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, and
it's
certainly in Merry Measure has some of that, but yeah,
mhm.
it's also just hard to make that look good.
It is.
There are versions of that exact same thing where you see it and you think this kind of looks flat. The movement of the camera isn't really there. And I just thought they did such a great
Mhm.
job framing it and lighting it and using the
Yeah.
locations they had. I mean, Adam and Mel, both the cinematographers for this, are just brilliant, brilliant people.
Yeah. So, was it difficult sort of writing the relationship between the two sisters, because her sisters had this loss, struggles, uh there's like a little bit of resentment there between the two sisters, and so was that tricky because you couldn't spend too much time on it, but you had to
Yeah.
spend enough time on it for it to work? I don't know, it seems like that would
Yeah,
be hard.
you don't want to harp on a dead relative too long. That's not very
Right.
Christmassy. But when it's important, then it has to be. Like I sort of wanted to make sure, and you can tell in the first scene, they don't ever really mention that he died or like what he died of, right? Like it's just their reality, right? Nobody
Yeah.
has to say out loud, well, remember when your husband died, right? Like because that doesn't happen in real life. So trying to make it the way that we did, where it was organic, but we didn't harp on it too much, was important. Yeah, I have friends who I won't say are resentful. Resentful is too strong a word, but I have friends who ask me all the time, well, when I'm from Jacksonville, Florida originally. I have friends who ask me all the time, when are you coming back to Florida? Right? Like that,
Mhm.
and especially for the holidays. Be like, hey, you going to be around for the holidays? And I don't travel home for the holidays that much anymore. I've got my family here. I've got my wife here, my dog here, my friends here. I get to see my family during the year. They understand. We do Zoom calls on the holidays, right? But I don't make those trips. And, sometimes when life gets hard because so many of the people from my past are across the country, I'm not able to physically be there all the time. And I'm not like a big pop star. I do have some availability to get back. If you're touring the world, then you probably get to miss like a lot of very important moments in a friend or family member's life. So, yeah, I think that the resentment element was probably harder than like the dead dad element, the dead husband element, because yeah, you want to make it clear that there is disappointment from a family member without it going into resentment, right? Like resentment is not very Christmassy, disappointment is allowed.
Mhm.
So so yeah, I that scene where Darcy tells Gretchen that she's going to have to go, and Gretchen sort of has the sort of speech back to her about like how it's a lot of emphasis on how positive the impact is that she is here now. There's not a lot of like, you weren't here, right? There's a lot of how great it's been now that you are here. And I think that shift, I don't remember what that scene looked like when it was initially written versus the end scene, but I definitely rewrote that scene a few times to try to get the tone right. And I
Yeah.
think that plays a big role for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and when she has to let the kids know, and she's letting you letting them down, and I was just bracing for, oh no, we're gonna get the scene where she's standing in front of the executives and she's gonna be like, I have to leave right now, and I'll be like, oh, but you didn't. You didn't.
No,
I'm proud of
we
you.
did not. Thank you. Yeah, no, and you know what? At no point was that a consideration, really. I think that we talked a lot about the logistics, of getting there, getting back, like looking at Google Maps to figure out, okay, well, if you're going from Dayton to the airport and then you get to JFK and then you go to the Upper West Side and then you turn around and get back to JFK and back to Dayton Airport and back to Dayton, is this feasible? What can we do? Right?
Yeah.
Like we do sit and have those conversations, as crazy as it sounds. Right. And you know, was she going to be able to go there? Obviously, there was like, I think y'all brought up that nowadays it would probably just be on Zoom. I think that that's fair. We did have to sort of create a bit of a like old school executive who needs them to perform in person in front of them character to make like the necessity of getting away happen. But also the music industry and film industry are littered with old school people like this.
Sure.
So, you know,
Yeah.
not, yeah, it's while it's maybe not the common way things are done anymore. I also maybe started writing this before I realized that Zoom would just stay around forever. So you know, that maybe there's a bit of that in there as well. You know.
Yeah. I loved the scene where he's nursing his broken heart with a giant cup of cocoa or coffee or whatever. I just thought that was like a classic Hallmark moment. You know, he's literally got like a candy cane and he's just so sad.
I had to push for that montage because usually at some point people get concerned about, because montages are technically very tricky.
Yeah.
When you're only shooting for like 12 days, 14 days, whatever the amount of days that are shot, you have to shoot a lot of stuff in different locations everywhere. And you have to add like that just adds a lot of time for something that's going to fly by very quickly. So I think that sometimes montages, we definitely at least had conversations about montages of did we need them here or can we lose them? Which I think is very reasonable. And I think we ended up keeping most, if not all, of the montages just because I love montages and I think they're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And again, huge credit to the geniuses who shot this movie, right? Like they were on schedule. The actors were nailing their takes, right? Like, so you're able to shoot more things if everybody is an absolute like genius at their job, which is what happened on this movie. So then we're able to get all these like fun things that turn into all these really fun, great montages. And like, that just doesn't happen if like someone's a diva or if somebody doesn't, you know, really know what they're doing or whatever. I mean, again, I can't praise the cast and crew enough. Just top of the line people are the reasons why we got to do all these super fun montages. And when you see a fun montage in a movie, watch it and think like, man, that took a lot of work. And it means that the people that are doing their job are like doing it very, very well.
So you have to write this ending kiss, which is a big moment in these Hallmark movies. Even if you have a mid kiss, that ending kiss is really important. And I thought it was really fun. And he says, I couldn't let my rival accept all the credit. And then he says, rivalry would imply competition, which she had said earlier on the date.
Yeah, she says a few times to him.
Yeah. And then then they kiss, and it's kind of a shut up and kiss me kiss kind of a thing. Like they go for it. And then she's like, oh, that was great. Very good.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. That was the way it was from the beginning. The idea that she would say, because I think sometimes when we have like jabs that really work against like our friends or maybe against our frenemies or whatever, if you've got a line that really works, you can keep going like back to the same well, right?
Yeah.
Like if I've got a buddy at poker that I like won because I had like 4 aces and I took all of his money, I'm going to bring that up a lot, right? Like I think that having something that you know works in terms of needling another person means that that's a button that's going to be frequently pushed. And so I think that she sees that line works well and she says it to him a couple of times throughout the movie. And as you can see, he also says like over and over again, he's the 6-time champion, right? Like he says that a couple times throughout as well. And so, yeah, for him to flip it on her at the end because she's, you know, like just swept up in the moment and doesn't realize that she's setting him up to turn the tables on her. Yeah. And I love a good shut up and kiss me, like without needing to say it, right? Like, you know, just like leaning in, just go for it. Like, you know, take the person in your arms and and go to work. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
yeah,
I
that
agree.
that I think is the most romantic stuff. My wife and I have been watching New Girl again recently. And I don't know if you watched New Girl when it was on. But
No, I know of it, but I didn't watch it.
the
But yeah.
first kiss between our two sort of leads, between Zooey Deschanel and Jake Johnson, is a great, like, wordless, like, just pull her in and
Yeah.
go for it. And yeah, those always, like, I feel like the movies where they say, like, so are you gonna kiss me now or whatever, like,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm sure that does happen in real life. People do say those things in order to get kisses, but I don't know, the big sweeping pull them in, come here you kind of deal is always something that sort of is more my taste, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it goes all the way back to like screwball comedies and Bring Up Baby, movies like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and I've been watching a lot of those. I've got some other projects that I'm working on that will also be funny and will also be a little crazy. And so things like I just watched Bring Up Baby, and I watched My Man Godfrey recently, which is great.
Christmas in Connecticut.
What's Up, Doc?
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, so many of, like, those. I just hope I don't borrow from them too liberally. Hopefully I just borrow the tone, right? It's very hard when you watch a bunch of things that are completely brilliant in a row. You're like, they seep in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to check yourself a little bit sometimes. But yeah, I love that you bring that up. I think that that's something that I can do really well and that I can bring to the table on these Hallmark movies a lot, is that that patter, the back and forth, the bickering without getting too nasty or cynical or mean.
Yes.
I definitely think that I can do that. And certainly the stuff I'm working on will have plenty of that going forward. And yeah, I'm excited.
Well, I think you did a great job, and I loved the ending with the Christmas jams. We talked about it. I feel like a number of Hallmark
Sure,
movies are
yes.
doing the Christmas jams
Sure.
this season, and that's not something my family ever did. But I think it's super cute.
My
It's
wife
fun.
and I do that now, more or less. We get pajamas in the stockings, and we open the stockings the night before, and then we have our, like, funky pajamas. I don't even know that they match necessarily. Sometimes they match. Some years they match. We got ones with our dog's face all over it that matched one year. That was a lot of fun. I think last year I got her a big, like, onesie with reindeer antlers. Stuff like this. Just tickles me. So and I thought they picked great. The people in charge of costuming got some great pajamas for that last scene.
They do such a good job
Yeah.
with the costuming in these movies. I did kind of laugh at the yellow scarves. It did look
Sure. I don't know that I don't think I wrote yellow scarves into the script.
We just kind of joked that they were ready to join Gryffindor House.
Sure. There's something that feels like vaguely like almost like a choir when you've got the
I can see that.
I don't remember, like, what they call this thing at church, the thing that drapes over that, like, they wear or whatever. So maybe
sashes or something.
Yeah, so maybe there's, like, some sort of scarf sash, like, subliminal, like, you taking you back to church with the stomping and the clapping and the what have you. But yeah, no, the costuming was great. My wife took pictures on screen multiple times being like, where do I get that sweater? I don't know. I can send some emails, I guess.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
We like to end our interviews with some fun holiday questions. So
Great.
Here we go. What is your favorite holiday drink?
My favorite holiday drink. I'm a big beer guy. So I think that doing like a nice winter ale,
Okay.
something that's going to be a little like sort of toffee, cinnamony
Yeah.
kind of flavor.
Mhm.
I like a big sort of warming winter ale.
Okay, good. All right. What's your favorite cookie or treat?
Favorite cookie or treat? My wife makes chocolate chip cookies with a little Maldon salt on the top.
Oh,
That when she makes them, she has to take them out of the house because I'll eat them all in one sip. So I'll
yeah,
go
that
with that.
sounds
My
good.
wife's cookies.
Yep.
What a cheap answer that is. If she's listening to this, she's gonna be like, he's just sucking up to me. No, that's a real answer. Her cookies are incredible.
Yeah. All right. What is your favorite Christmas song or carol?
Favorite Christmas song or carol? Go Tell It on the Mountain is
Oh yeah,
way
you
up
had that in the
there.
movie.
Yeah, it's way up there. I really love Al Green's Christmas album. I listen to that every Christmas, and he's got like some like soulified versions of like Jingle Bells and I'll Be Home for Christmas and stuff like this. Oh, wait, no, I know the answer. Stop the presses. There's a Robert Goulet song. All right,
No.
for the people listening to this, okay? I don't know how this became a tradition in my family, but I swear it's true. In fact, I think I do know. I like to go to thrift stores and buy like records and things sometimes, or shirts or what have you.
Uh-huh.
And I found at a thrift shop once a Robert Goulet's like Wonderful World of Christmas or something. And for people
What?
who don't know Robert Goulet, he's like an old theater actor
Yeah.
and crooner,
Victor
and yeah,
Victoria. Yeah.
Camelot, right?
Yeah.
Like all like lots of good stuff. So some people might know him as the bad guy in Naked Gun 2. Yeah, he has like there's a couple of traditional carols, but then he's got the original Christmas songs, which whenever you're listening to an album by people and they start to do the original Christmas songs, you're either going to get like a big stinker or a big winner, right? There's no in between on these. And there's a song called Hurry Home for Christmas by Robert Goulet. I think it's by Robert Goulet. Either that or it's a standard I'd never heard of until it was Robert
Yeah.
Goulet. And I put it on one Christmas, and my dad thinks it's like, it's one of the things where you start playing it because it's funny, and then it becomes something you sincerely love. It's like watching The Bachelor or something, right? So, like, yeah, now we just very much sincerely love it. And I know that my dad, every Christmas, to wake us up, would put on Hurry Home for Christmas by Robert Goulet and play it on the speakers as loud as he could to get us out of bed. And yeah, so I think even though I said a lot of things I do really love, I think in honor of that, I'm going to go with Hurry Home for Christmas, Robert Goulet, final answer.
That is very cute. Okay, good. What is your favorite classic Christmas movie?
Classic Christmas movie. I mean, I got to go Muppet Christmas Carol.
Ah,
I watch
yes.
it. I watch it every Christmas Eve
So
when
good.
Beaker gives Scrooge the scarf, tears every time. I know
Yes.
every word to every song. Yeah, I'm obsessed with Muppet Christmas Carol.
So I love it too. They had a panel at D23 because it's the 30th anniversary or whatever. And they announced that they are that's coming back onto Disney Plus with
The Love
the
Is
full
Gone.
version with the Love Is Gone song.
Great.
It's very exciting.
Great. That
Yes,
song is
4K.
it's the heart of the movie. And
Yeah.
the DVD that I have, I've got it so that in widescreen it doesn't have The Love Is Gone, and then the full screen has The Love Is Gone. So every Christmas I'm like, and this is weird behavior that I'm about to describe. I watch the widescreen version until The Love Is Gone is supposed to start. I stop it. I flip to the full screen. I watch The Love Is Gone in full screen, and then I flip back to the widescreen to watch the rest of the movie.
Well, now you can just watch on Disney Plus.
I
Very
will
exciting.
100% do that. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully
All
they
right.
look up there.
Speaking of Christmas Carol, which do you like better, Scrooge or the Grinch?
You know, I played the Grinch in Seussical the Musical.
Oh,
There are
really?
some very funny photos of me dressed as the Grinch, probably somewhere floating around online. So I do think I have to go with the Grinch here.
Oh, okay. Which do you like better, clear lights or colored?
Colored lights, for
Okay.
sure. Grew up with those.
Would you rather be in a snowball fight or build a snowman?
You know, as somebody who grew up in Florida and now lives in California, I have very little experience with this. I am inclined to say snowman.
Okay, good. I mean that you Patty Murin.
There is supposed to be a snowball scene in the movie, and actually, here's a fun for the people. I'm going to encourage anyone listening to this to rewatch it. Cammy, right? And she's one of the when she's not watching it late at night while also watching her child, she can rewatch the movie and look for this Easter egg. There was supposed to be a snowball scene at the pub where they're drinking beer, and there are guys who are throwing snowballs in the back, and if you can see in the background of one of the scenes, the snowball just like bounces because it's clearly like foam or something. So there is a like fun little, or maybe it was meant to be that. Like I don't know. Maybe on the day of production I wasn't there for that, so maybe they changed it from snowballs to like white balls. Like I don't know. I wasn't there for that, to be honest. But if you're watching the scene thinking, oh, they're tossing snowballs, and all of a sudden you watch one of them bounce in the background for like half a second, then it's pretty funny.
Yeah. Well,
Easter egg there.
Would you consider yourself a good gift wrapper or not?
Famously bad gift wrapper. Very famously bad. Yeah, I'm a big fan now of you buy the bag and you put like one piece of tissue paper on top of it. That's my ideal scenario. If I have to wrap, I'm working on a script that deals with gift wrapping a lot, actually. And I'm trying to get better. We always try to get better at things in life, but I am a famously bad gift wrapper.
Yeah. All right, last question. Do you have an ugly Christmas sweater?
I do, and I knew these questions were coming, so I busted it out. This is for the YouTube watchers here, okay? Check this out.
Oh my gosh, great.
Check this out. So, to describe it to the people listening, my favorite movie character or Christmas movie character of all time is the Bumble from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I have a Bumble pants, Bumble slippers, Bumble. I got Bumble everything, man. I love the Bumble.
Nice.
Yeah, there's just something about, this misunderstood guy who just like needs, a little love and Christmas, in order to bring his best self out. I don't know. There's something I relate to about that, I guess. Maybe he's also big and hairy, and so am I to some extent. So, why not? But yeah, this abominable snowman holding a mistletoe is the closest that I could find to a Bumble ugly Christmas sweater that's not like a sweatshirt, right? Like, you know how like the Christmas sweaters but they're sweatshirts. I wanted like a real Christmas sweater with the Bumble on it, and this is the best I could do, but I'm a big fan of it.
I think it's cute.
The abominable.
Yeah, he's under the mistletoe too.
And he's got a little rose there. He's like kind of a romantic.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe he needs to be in a Hallmark.
He's like ready to go on a date.
I loved seeing comments from people on Twitter that they wanted a sequel where Gretchen and Coach Rick get together.
Okay.
Why not? Hallmark, call me. To marry, to measure. I'll write it.
I mean, it's so hard because people always want sequels, but then it's so hard to make a good sequel of a Hallmark movie because you've got the couple together. So what to do next? It's very difficult.
That's why it's got to be a separate couple.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You gotta try and like you branch it, right? You like branch the family of movies out kind of in a perfect.
Well, and it's true because that's what romance novels do. Like if you're reading like
the Bridgertons,
the Fool's Gold series, and the first one will be about Pamela, and then Pamela's sister will be the next one, and then another minor character, and you'll see like little Easter eggs of the characters in the previous books throughout, and they're trying to do that with like the Wedding Veil movies and with the Time to Come Home movies and things like that. They did it with the Evergreen a little bit, but yeah, I mean that is something to this type of storytelling, I think.
Yeah,
but
and I mean
Jennifer Robertson usually are terrible.
Yeah, it's tough to get right. Jennifer Robertson is one of the most lovely people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. I got to just chat with her on her day off. She was just like sitting on the side. We just started talking, and like we talked for like hours. She had no reason to talk to me. I'm the writer.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to talk to the writer for 2 hours or whatever, but she was just incredibly nice. She's very smart. She has so many great like ideas and great opinions on movies and TV, and yeah, she's lovely. And I think that if she wanted to be like the lead in a Christmas movie, even if it's not a In Merry Measure sequel, I mean, I would be all about her being the lead in one of these things. She's often the sassy sister or sassy neighbor's wife or whatever, and she absolutely could crush it as the lead, in my opinion.
I would love to see that. Well, I'm so happy for you. This is a very heartwarming story, your success and the movie. And so congratulations. We're excited to follow your career. And thanks for coming on talking with us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, when next Christmas, if more movies get made, I'll gladly talk about those as well. I love talking movies with people who love them.
Yeah, definitely. And if people want to follow you on social media, how do they do that?
Yeah, Russell H Film, RussellH Film. I've got that's Instagram, that's Letterboxd. If Twitter still exists when you're listening to this, I'm still there. And then I'm gonna give the weirdest shout out of all time. You have never had this on this show before. Are you ready?
All right.
I am also a like beer media influencer type person. I don't really know what to call it.
Okay.
I was involved in like writing about beer festivals and things for media outlets before, and now I have a TikTok account where I make TikToks about craft beer and things. So I don't know again what the overlap is between the Hallmarkies fan base and the TikTok using craft beer lover base. But, you know, if you are hearing this and you're like, oh my goodness, that is me, you can follow me on TikTok at the Beer Travel Guide.
Nice. Very good. Okay, good. Well, thanks so much and hope you have a very, very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Rachel. You do the same. Thanks for having me on.
I'd like to thank Russell for coming on the podcast. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this interview. So let us know what you think about all the different things that we're talking about in the comments or on Twitter. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We also have our Patreon group, which is so much fun. We have watch alongs and our group on Facebook that you can become a part of. So please take a look at that. It really helps us a lot. And then we also have the merch store. It has all kinds of festive designs. So please take a look at that and help us out. And thanks again to Russell, and we'll talk to you later. Bye. Merry Christmas.